Welcome back to Colin's Country. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make and can one of our favorite dinners ever. It is a Winter's Day chili soup. My mother-in-law gave me this recipe when James and I first started dating, and it is so good. His entire family is obsessed with it, and when you try it, you'll know why, because it's unlike any other recipe. It's half soup, half chili. The flavors are perfect, and it's really easy to make. So come along, and I'll show you how to make it and can it. Right here is the recipe for my mother-in-law if you would like to screenshot it, and I'll show you the few changes that I make to it. There's also this on the back. Otherwise, I will have it written out in the description for you to copy. Right here is everything that you're going to need. You will need 2 chopped onion. Any onion will work. I'm just using Vidalia and white onions from our garden. 2 pounds of sausage. I prefer to use pork breakfast sausage, but whatever kind of sausage you want to use will work. I'm also using more than 2 pounds because I always make whatever I have on hand. So I'm using almost 3 pounds. Then you will need 2 quarts of tomato juice. This looks like a lot of tomato juice because it is. These are half gallons, so there's 2 quarts in each one. Again, I'm making a little extra because I'm going to can this. Then you'll need a half a cup of brown sugar, 3/4 of a teaspoon of chili powder, 1/8 of a teaspoon of red pepper flakes, or more of both of those if you want it spicier. Salt to taste. I usually throw in about a teaspoon, and then 4 cups of cooked beans. I like a combination of some red beans and white beans. Today I'm using some navy beans, and then this is a mixture of navy, pinto, and Great Northern. Honestly, any beans will work, but the recipe calls for 4 cups of, kidney beans. Now here's where I do deviate from the recipe a little bit. The original recipe calls for 6 cups of water and 4 tablespoons of cornstarch. My mother-in-law puts in about 4 cups of water, but I don't like adding any water in at all because honestly, I think it just makes it too runny. I will usually just add in a little bit of extra tomato juice because then that makes it a little bit thicker, kind of more like chili, but still runnier like soup. But if you want it really runny like soup, make sure you do put in all that water. Also, to thicken it up, they use cornstarch. I don't like cooking or canning with cornstarch, so what I'll do is throw in a little bit of tomato paste if it's too thin, or what you'll see me doing today is after I cook the sausage, I make a roux. And so instead of putting in 4 tablespoons of cornstarch, I just put in 4 tablespoons of flour and cook that into it before I put in all the other ingredients, and that helps thicken it up. So you got options there on how you want to thicken it up. Okay, that's enough explanation about the recipe and how to make it. Let's go ahead and do it from start to finish. This entire process takes less than 30 minutes. Then I'll show you how to can it. First, you're just going to brown all of your sausage in a big pot. And I like to use one of these doohickeys to help me chop it up as I go. While that's cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and dice up our onion. I prefer to dice ours up really small, but if you want it in bigger chunks, you can definitely leave it in bigger chunks. Also, if you've got a crowd that won't eat onions at all, you can put it in a food processor and kind of chop it up real fine. Almost done browning the meat. Okay, the meat is browned, so now we're going to put in our 4 tablespoons of flour to make the roux. Remember, if you don't want to use flour, you can use cornstarch, or if you don't want to use either of those, you can thicken it up with some tomato paste. Also, if you don't want the grease in there, drain it out through a mesh colander, but I actually really like the grease in there, so I leave it. This sausage isn't super greasy anyway. Okay, now we're just gonna mix that flour in and let it cook for about 2 minutes so it takes out the flour taste. It's been a couple of minutes, so now we're going to add all of our other ingredients into here. And I'm gonna start with the tomato juice and put a little bit in at a time and stir it each time. That way the flour gets well incorporated into the mixture and it helps thicken it up. All right, I got all the ingredients in. Now we're just going to bring it back to a boil and simmer it for 15 minutes to make sure everything is nice and combined and the onions are cooked. Now, I'm eating this for dinner, which is why I'm fully cooking it. But if you just wanted to make it to can it, you can actually skip this part where you bring it to a boil and simmer it for 15 minutes, because when you fill your jars and put them in the pressure canner, it'll fully cook in the pressure canner. So if you want to eat it, make sure you cook it for 15 minutes. But if you just want to can it, go ahead and fill those jars. And I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. All right, we have come to a boil, so we're gonna simmer this for 15 minutes, and make sure you stir it every couple of minutes because the beans naturally like to settle to the bottom and you don't want anything to get scorched. 15 minutes is up and it is done. And you always know it's done when the onions are no longer floating at the top, but look at this. Beans and bites of meat, onions, and everything in every bite. It's perfect. And see the consistency? It's not as thin as a lot of soups, but it's also not as thick as chili. I think that's why it's called Winter's Day chili soup. Okay, we're gonna eat dinner and then I'll show you how to can it. We ate dinner and now I've got everything out to pressure can this. This is my canning commanding station. I got my pressure canner out, all my jars, lids, and bands. And normally I wipe the rims with water, but I'm using vinegar for this because there is grease in this chili soup. And sometimes the grease does not allow you to get a good seal. So I wipe with vinegar just to make sure the jars are completely clean when I put my lids on so that I get a really good seal. Let's do it. Okay, got all my jars filled. I filled 18 and I do still have some left over that we will eat tomorrow for lunch. So now we're going to fill our pressure canner. My pressure canner holds 18 pints, 9 on the bottom, put another tray, 9 on top. Let's fill it up. I got the first 9 in there, and then this is the little aluminum tray thing you put in there so you can stack more on top. I've got the link to that and everything else I'm using in this video down in the description below. It's all from Amazon. I got them all in there. Now let's get our lid on. Now make sure you follow your pressure canner instructions for the amount of water that you put in it and everything else. I've got my water in there, the lid is on, and my pressure canner requires venting. So I've got my heat on. I'm gonna bring the water inside up to a boil. Once it starts boiling, you'll see the steam come out of here, and I'm gonna let it vent for 10 minutes. We are venting. You can see the steam coming out here. So now we're gonna vent it for 10 minutes. 10 minutes is up. Now I'm gonna put my weight on, and you're gonna see my button go up. That means that there is pressure in the canner. Now my pressure is gonna rise. We need it at 10 pounds pressure. There we go. We are at 10 pounds pressure, so now I'm gonna set my timer. Pints are gonna cook for 75 minutes, quarts for 90. Also, make sure you adjust your pressure for elevation. I'll put the chart in here. The higher elevation you are, the more pressure you will need. The time is up, so now I'm not gonna touch it or do anything to it. I'm just going to let all of that pressure go down naturally. Once it hits 0, I'll take my lid off and take my jars out. All right. Pressure's down to 0, and it is actually the next morning because I do prefer, if I'm not canning multiple batches of something, to let it cool down overnight because that prevents any siphoning from happening. When you take the lid off when it's still really hot inside and you pull those jars out real quick into a cold house, it does cause the siphoning, which is where some of the liquid on the inside comes out. So if you're not in a rush and you can let it sit and cool down overnight, that is the best way to do it. Let me get this lid off and we'll unload it. There we go. Look at this. The jars are definitely warm still, but they are not hot. I'm gonna pull them out. I did just want to show real quick that the settling is normal. This is what a jar looks like that has been sitting all night. This is one that I just shook up real quick and reconstituted. So the settling is normal if you see that in your jars. There you have it. Got them all unloaded. And this is perfect. We now have 18 lunches ready to go that we can just grab on a work day and take with us. And this Winter's Day chili soup really is one of our favorite dinners. You've got to make it. Let us know if you have any questions. Otherwise, happy homesteading and happy canning.